lithium-ion batteries.
Lithium-ion battery.
Lithium-ion battery.
Electricity in particular, I mean, it's essentially bottled lightning, is the way we often describe it to students. And it's incredibly complex.
I think it's quite hard to imagine a world without batteries because batteries are everywhere.
And it requires these really intricate systems with trillions of dollars of sunk investment to deliver into your home.
Ever tried to replace your phone or laptop and found it suddenly way more expensive or just out of stock? It's not just supply chain drama. The materials that power our batteries are getting harder and more expensive to find. Meanwhile, mountains of used batteries are piling up, most of them unrecycled. But what if we could recover nearly all of those valuable metals in the same amount of time it takes to brew your morning coffee? China may have just cracked the code, and the key? It's not some futuristic tech, it's a humble molecule you've probably eaten in soup. Lithium-ion batteries power everything from smartphones to electric vehicles. But the process of making them, it's a whole different story. To build a single battery, we first need to extract valuable metals like lithium, cobalt, manganese, and nickel. Right now, this extraction happens mostly through mining-intense, destructive mining that leaves behind environmental scars. Studies highlight the severe impact. A report from 2020 by the UNCTAD noted in Chile's Salar de Atacama, lithium and other mining activities consume 65% of the water, causing groundwater depletion, soil contamination, and other forms of environmental degradation, forcing local communities to abandon ancestral settlements. This extraction process is resource-hungry, with toxic chemicals used to leach metals from the earth, polluting waterways and ecosystems. With demand for electric vehicles growing and global supply chains growing more unstable, the cost of securing these critical materials is skyrocketing. In the meantime, the demand for these valuable metals could soar by an astounding 700% by 2050. Meanwhile, the metals we do extract are finite. Cobalt, for example, is mined mostly in regions of political unrest. In fact, over 60% of the world's cobalt comes from the Democratic Republic of Congo, where human rights abuses, including child labor, are widespread in the mining industry. According to a report from Discovery Alert from early 2025, the complex supply chains for critical minerals face several interconnected challenges that may jeopardize the energy transition. Geopolitical concentration remains a primary risk. These geographical concentrations expose vulnerable points in the chain. Environmental concerns also complicate new developments. Traditional hard rock mining, for instance, consumes more water and generates higher carbon emissions. This creates not only environmental problems, but also a looming crisis in resource availability. So, how do we solve this? Enter battery recycling, a solution that's been promised for years, but the reality is, current recycling methods are still a far cry from what we need. The process is happening, yes, but honestly it's struggling to keep up in a way that's truly efficient or clean. That's because the two main industrial approaches we've relied on, pyrometallurgy, smelting, and hydrometallurgy, acid leaching, both have major downsides. Pyrometallurgy uses incredibly high heat, which is energy intensive, creates emissions, and means losing valuable materials and components to the fire. Hydrometallurgy, on the other hand, involves powerful chemical processes, often using toxic substances like sulfuric acid or ammonia. While these can recover more metals, they generate hazardous waste and raise significant safety concerns. Industry experts and researchers who have studied these traditional recycling methods often highlight the inherent compromise. You typically either use massive amounts of energy and lose some valuable materials in the process, or you rely on harsh toxic chemicals that create significant environmental burdens. It's a tough cycle. These fundamental issues with our current methods mean that battery recycling isn't living up to its promise. It carries significant environmental and safety burdens, making us feel like we're stuck. We desperately need a breakthrough, something fundamentally different, but just maybe we've finally found one. But now the story takes a hopeful turn. Picture this. A team of researchers in China has developed a new revolutionary way to recycle these batteries. One that completely sidesteps those toxic acids and harsh chemicals we talked about. Their secret weapon? Something incredibly simple: And surprisingly, something you might already know: glycine. That's right, glycine, a humble amino acid, a natural compound found in everyday things like gelatin and even the food you eat. It's completely benign. But here's the truly amazing part. This simple molecule has a knack for bonding with those valuable metals inside the battery: the lithium, nickel, cobalt, and manganese. So how does this game-changing process actually work? Well, it starts with collecting old batteries. Think of these small, flat ones powering everything from remote controls to car keys. These are then carefully broken down into a fine powder. Then, this powder is introduced into a simple neutral solution, essentially just like adding it to water. This is where our key ingredient, glycine, comes in. Added to the mix, it begins to work at a molecular level, selectively bonding with those valuable metals inside, gently coaxing them out of the battery material without needing any aggressive chemicals. To help everything along, the solution is warmed up, reaching a temperature similar to a hot cup of coffee, around 80 degrees Celsius. This warmth just helps to accelerate the natural process, making sure the metal extraction is efficient. And here's one of the most exciting parts. The entire extraction process is incredibly fast. In about the time it takes you to enjoy that cup of coffee, roughly just 15 minutes, the researchers can effectively filter out the now recovered metals from the liquid. The real beauty here is twofold. It's significantly faster than many traditional methods, and it's fundamentally cleaner. We're talking no toxic acids, no harmful ammonia, just a simple, safe solution for recovering these critical materials. This approach truly has the potential to reshape the entire story of how we recycle and reuse the materials for future technology. So, how does this stack up against those established methods like pyrometallurgy and hydrometallurgy that we discussed? Remember how pyrometallurgy burns through huge energy and loses valuable metals like lithium and manganese? And how hydrometallurgy, while recovering more, relies on harsh toxic acids and creates hazardous waste? Well, the glycine method directly tackles these problems. It achieves high recovery, over 90% of lithium, cobalt, nickel, and manganese, but without the extreme heat or the dangerous chemicals. It is a clean, efficient process under mild, safe conditions, marking a dramatic step forward for our planet. And here's some bonus news that truly highlights the potential. During lab tests where these recycled metals were used to build brand new batteries, those batteries showed incredible promise, maintaining almost 90% of their original capacity even after 100 charge-discharge cycles. As exciting as the glycine method is, we need to temper our expectations slightly. The leap from a lab breakthrough to a full-scale industrial solution is significant. Taking this from a beaker and scaling it up to process the thousands of tons of battery waste we see annually requires enormous engineering effort, substantial investment, and years of work. Industry leaders confirm the scale of the investment. As Nishchai Chadha, CEO of Ace Green Recycling, put it, these are all very large market participants, very substantial players. They like to operate very large projects, which demand a huge amount of capital. And this presents a fascinating point. With China's existing dominance in battery manufacturing and recycling infrastructure, could they quickly capitalize on a breakthrough like this, potentially leaving the West struggling to catch up in securing future materials? This competition has significant strategic dimensions. As Heidi Kribo-Redeker, an economist and expert on trade and technology policy, examined on the Brookings Institution Climate Sense podcast,
China's role in the supply chains here is critical. And they went beyond just the self-sufficiency in the critical minerals and rare earths to actually an ambition for domination. And it's not an accident. Right now, China controls about 55% of global rare earths mining capacity and about 85% of rare earths refining. Their dominance in this space was strategic and it was planned, and they were very smart, and it's the result of a decades-long strategy.
Understanding this critical, competitive landscape and the ambition for control over these vital resources raises serious questions about which nations and companies are prepared to make the necessary investments to secure their own supply chains. But even in this high-stakes global race, the fundamentals of this glycine technology stand out. It's safe, it's clean, and the lab results are compelling. The science is here, and the need is urgent. So, the big question now isn't if it can work, but if we collectively will choose to make it work, to invest and build this future. But what do you think? Could this clean method actually scale, or are we getting ahead of ourselves? Drop your thoughts below. Let's unpack it together.